Okay guys, so I'm out here on the water, and of course I have the Surunoya Dark Wolf Ultra, and the purpose of this test is basically just to see if the brakes are good enough. Because if you recall, my Black Knight 2, which is basically the same reel as the Dark Wolf Ultra with just minor differences, it had problems with what I would consider average weight BFS lures. Simply put, the brakes on that reel were not strong enough. Now I got the Dark Wolf Ultra put on the Ace Hawk CU Double with the ultralight tip, 4-pound monofilament, and I'm going to be casting a range of lures going from about 3.5 grams, which is 1/8 of an ounce, down to 1/16 of an ounce. So let us begin. Now before we start casting around the Dark Wolf Ultra, I'm just going to take a few minutes to revisit the Black Knight 2, and I'm going to be casting around the same lures with this reel first, just to either reconfirm that the brakes are too weak for average bait finesse lures, or maybe just that first outing I had with this reel was a fluke. I have it mounted on the same rod, same line, same ultralight tip, and I did make one change. Now apparently the spool tension on this Black Knight 2 kind of reminds me of the Abu Garcia REVO LTX. You can keep turning it, and the same amount of side-to-side play will be there. So I literally had to turn it maybe a full rotation before I could get the side-to-side play eliminated. And I think that might have been different when I first took this reel out. So let's see if that makes a difference. Now the first lure I'm going to throw is going to be the Euro Tackle Z-Spender finesse jerkbait. I think it weighs just slightly under 1/8 of an ounce. I got a size 14 snap swivel, and I got the brakes turned up to its maximum position of 5. And we'll start casting. Okay, wow, so right there, the lure went way off to the left. And either that was my fault or the brakes are strong enough, it's just that the spool tension wasn't set up right. Okay, it looks like my suspicions originally were confirmed, because I just blew this spool up really bad, and this was with the brakes turned up to maximum. And I think the line actually went in between the spool and the frame. And the sad thing is, I'm not even really putting any effort into these casts. I'm just flicking this jerkbait out there and this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten the spool tension up maybe one click and see if that helps at all. So we're going to go up one click on the spool tension, and maybe that'll help, but it's actually performing worse than I remembered. So right there, I just casually flicked it out there, and the spool was fine, but I am thumbing it. Now the wind's coming in, it's going to be a good test. Yeah, this is actually performing worse than my original cast test on the Black Knight 2. So this reel seems to be basically a one-trick pony, casting super ultralight baits only, like the trout magnet, maybe slightly heavier. And as you can see, these overruns are pretty deep, but it doesn't seem to like these heavier upper end weight BFS lures. Now, could it be the bearings? That might have a little bit to do with it, but I mean, to have the brakes turned up to maximum and you can't even cast a simple 1/8 ounce jerkbait with a moderate wrist flick, that is unacceptable. And this 4-pound line is getting in between, and well, it's gotten in between the spool and the frame pretty good. And around the brake hub. So you would literally either, oh damn it. So yeah, I had to take a few minutes to take the spool out and untangle the line that got in between the spool and the frame. And this is 4-pound mono, not 2-pound mono. So it's actually performing worse, noticeably worse than the original cast test. All right, the wind has died down. Let's do one overhead cast, see if you can handle it. I had to thumb that towards the end of the cast. I saw some coils fluffing up and it cut the cast distance. Now, if the brakes are strong enough, this thing would be a devastating caster. But literally, for me, the only way this thing would be fishable is to just crank this spool tension up and do it that way to where the lure falls super slow. And even then, well, it seemed to do it. But when you get to the lighter lures, like 1/16 ounce, that would affect, in my opinion, the trajectory or the accuracy. So it turns out the Black Knight is somewhat fishable with these regular BFS lure weights if you tighten down pretty much everything. Tighten down the spool tension, crank the brakes up. Don't put too much effort into the cast. If you cast too hard, these brakes still get overpowered even with the spool tension tightened up. So yeah, that's really, really disappointing. And I'm sure you guys know Bass and Bonsai. He got himself a Black Knight 2. And it looked like to make his work, he had to actually attach additional magnets to the hub itself. Now he's fine with doing that, but me personally, I'm not gonna spend money on a reel, even an $80 AliExpress Chinese reel, to have to jerry rig some magnets in order to get it to be fishable. So let's get to the Dark Wolf Ultra. Alrighty, so now it is the Dark Wolf Ultra's turn. Let's set this reel up. I'm going to just eliminate the side-to-side play. And I'm really having to crank this spool tension to get it to do anything. Okay, side-to-side play just eliminated. But there is just a slight bit of play there. There, it's just eliminated. Now normally I would maybe loosen it just a hair just to get a little bit of play moving, but in this test I'm not going to do that. Now we're going to crank the brakes all the way up to 5. We are throwing the same Euro Tackle Z-Spender, same size snap swivel. Let's start casting. Oh, way better. Hopefully you guys saw there's no problems with the spool. Now Tsurunoya is, I guess, one of the more respected AliExpress Chinese brands. Oh, had some overrun there. So maybe they told the factory that makes these reels for them that you need to make sure the magnets are strong or stronger on their particular brand of this frame. Oh, look at that. Had an overrun that sorted itself out. And once again, I'm just flicking these casts out there. I'm not actually even trying to go for cast distance. So this is behaving like the Black Knight 2 was when I first took that reel out. You know, brakes cranked up, heavier BFS lure. Had some overrun, but nothing that didn't sort itself out. So yeah, apparently these two reels are pretty much the same when it comes to braking performance, but somehow the Black Knight 2 got worse than I remember. See, look at that. Now I'm gonna point you guys to another Dark Wolf Ultra review by a guy over in the UK. He's got a channel called The Constant Angler, and I watched his video on this. Now granted, he was throwing upper weight BFS, and I think he's had his spool tension set a little different, but he was slinging lures out there with no problem. So I'm going to leave a link to that video in either the description or the comment section to The Constant Angler. He's got some other budget BFS reel reviews as well, so if you want to go check that out. But his review on the Dark Wolf Ultra was promising, but once again, I think he throws different weight of BFS lures than I do. He tends to throw like Ned rigs and things on the heavier end, and he may have locked his spool tension down because that's his preference. So yeah, with this roughly 1/8 ounce Euro Tackle Z Spender, looks like it's pretty much 50-50. One cast there'll be no overrun, the next cast there will be, and so on and so on. Oh, what was that? Oh, it was a tree branch. See right there, no overruns on the spool on that cast, which is overhead. Let's see if we can do 2 out of 2. Okay, and there was a overrun on that one. So, all right, so very disappointing, especially considering the potential of this spool, which, if you recall, was the lightest stock BFS spool yet at 5.3 grams. But the lure is going out there probably close to 80 feet. Now right there, I took special effort to not whip my wrist too much at the end, and still we're having an overrun. And remember, this reel has standard, I guess, stainless steel ball bearings, not the hybrid ceramics that the Black Knight 2 has. So it appears that going to, I guess, regular ball bearings on the Black Knight 2 probably is not going to help that reel out. All right, let's switch over to a lighter lure. Okay, so I switched up to this little JDM jerkbait that weighs about 1.7 grams. I found a much smaller size 24 snap swivel, so the total weight on this rig is going to be under 2 grams. So let's see what the Dark Wolf Ultra can do with this noticeably smaller and lighter lure. All right, so right there, handled it with no problem. And it's going out there at least 20 yards. Let's do an overhead. Okay, so far so good, even with the overhead. Let's do a couple more. Now I put a little bit more effort into that cast. Went a little bit further, but still no problems with the spool. All right, put a little bit more effort in that one, and I saw some loops that cleared themselves out. Okay, so it seems like Dark Wolf can handle this sub 2 gram lure and cast it pretty accurately too. It's going exactly where I'm casting it, which is straight ahead. All right, we'll do one more, and then we're going to see if we can turn these brakes down. Okay, let's go to, I went down 3 clicks on the brakes, so it's in between 4 and 5. Okay, seem to have no problems. Okay, let's go all the way down to 4. And I think 4 was probably the limit on the Black Knight 2 for pretty much any lure if the spool didn't blow up. Okay, we had a decent overrun there, but nothing that was too bad. Let's do some overhead. Now distance on this brake setting probably increased maybe a couple of feet, but I think I'm starting to understand these reels now, the Dark Wolf Ultra and the Black Knight 2, and what they are capable of, what to cast on them and what not to cast on them. Now the casting and retrieving is noticeably quieter than the Black Knight 2 because of the bearings, but yeah, I don't think I can go any lower than 4. In fact, I think 4 might be too low for this particular lure. So we're gonna go back to about 4.5. I'm going up, let's say 3 clicks. Oh, still some overrun. So once again, even on this particular lure, you are looking at one cast being perfectly fine, and the next cast, you'll get an overrun. Okay, we'll do a couple more, and I don't think I'm gonna be trying to trout magnet on this Dark Wolf Ultra, at least in this video, maybe in another one, but I'm getting blow-ups now consistently. I think that's because the wind is starting to pick up a little bit, coming directly into my face. Yep, wind coming in, had to thumb that spool or it would have exploded. Let's go this way. Okay, so I think I've seen enough, and let's go back home and discuss my thoughts on this reel. Okay, so I'm pretty sure you guys could tell by the video footage that both of these two reels behave pretty much exactly alike. In fact, the Black Knight 2 actually behaved worse than the first time I took it out. So basically both of their brake systems were inconsistent and inadequate for the way that I fish bait finesse and the lures that I throw. And it just goes to show you that there's a lot more that goes into designing a braking system than just copying the design of another manufacturer. So I'm not sure if the other Dark Wolf Ultras and Black Knight 2s that people have purchased throughout the world behave the same, but I will say this. I'm going to give both of these reels one more chance, and that's going to be with a different line. I'm going to be testing both of these reels out with braid, as well as doing some other testing with braided line for bait finesse. But as it stands at this moment, I personally can't recommend either of these reels, especially for the price they're wanting, which is around $80 plus they're charging tax now. So I'm not sure when I'm going to be getting to these braid tests, probably sometime after the new year, but be on the lookout for those. All right guys, thanks a lot.